I'm here with Harry Ruggles and Harold Ruggles. We are at the Kent Historical Society. Okay, it's obvious to me you two men are twins, identical twins, and we're interested in your story of when you were born, where you were born, and your story of growing up, living through the Depression, about your parents, and other things that come to mind. Just, we're interested in your story. Young people are interested in your story and leaving a legacy for future generations. We feel it's very important. And we're very glad you came in. So, introduce yourselves.
I'm the oldest by 15 minutes, Harold Oscar Ruggles. My middle name came from my grandfather on my mother's side. His name was Oscar Champney. And he lived in Kent here, of course, came in from New York, and he ran a dray.
What's a dray?
A dray is a team of horses in a wagon business. He hauled freight out of the depot. He hauled stone out of the quarry, and who knows what else he didn't haul. But I heard Mom tell about the livery was up here where the old Buick garage stands on the west side of the river. That's where the livery was. That's where he kept the horses.
Is at the edge of the river, by the bridge?
Yes.
We have a photograph of it.
They lived on Main Street. The house is where the old Acme store used to be, on Main Street. That's what I remember her telling.
What year were you gentlemen born in?
1925.
1925. Well, what do you remember? What are your earliest memories of born and growing up?
One of my earliest memories, we were living on Arndale Road in Stowe, and my mother took us over to the stairway, opened the door and said, "Now the basement's full of water, don't you go near there or you'll drown." That's one of the earliest memories I can think of.
Go ahead.
Because the basement was full of water, we're moving out of here. So we moved to Silver Lake and got burnt out there. And then we moved to Front Street in the Falls. And we were there a couple of years till we moved to Stowe in 1931.
Now, what are your memories?
My memory starts about the same time his did. I remember the fruit jars hitting the door because the water was, you hear the noise, and that's why she opened it up. But I also remember we didn't have electricity to start with, but we did end up with one light bulb here and there. And Dad was shaving, and he got his face all lathered up and everything, and I come around there. I think he might have been with me, and it kind of scared. We never seen Dad all lathered up before, so we took off running to my mother, and she came back, and so he cleaned his face all up, and he give one of us the brush, and to soap him all up. And we soaped him all up, and then we started hollering again. But then right across the street was a big tree. I remember cutting that big tree down. It was hollow. And they cut it down to get the coons out of it.
Oh.
I can remember that.
How old were you?
Well, it's been 1927.
So you were 2 years old?
Yeah, we were just a couple years old.
And you remember something from 2 years old?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
it is. Now from 2 till 5 is kind of a blank. I don't really remember too much in there.
The next thing I remembered when we moved out of there was when the house was on fire, we were upstairs sleeping, taking our nap. And my mother came in and she said, "Now don't get excited, we're going to get out, the house is on fire." She grabbed me under one arm, grabbed him on the other arm, and down the stairs we went, and the smoke's coming up the steps. Then she put us by a tree out in front of the house and said, "Sit there and don't you move." I don't know what she did, but she was going back in to get something or try to put it out or what, but a couple girls from across the street come over and got us and took us over in their house.
Earlier in the day, when we was going to take our nap, there was a question whether we're going to leave our shoes on or take them off. I said, I'm going to leave my shoes on. He says, I'm going to take mine off. I can remember the fireman coming down because he was hollering he wanted his shoes. He brought his shoes down, they were full of water.
Uh-huh. Well,
That was the same time that my dad had his auto repair shop down on Stowe Street in Cuyahoga Falls next to Barney Lyle Chevrolet. And he heard the fire truck go through and somebody hollered at him, told him his house was on fire, and he come out. And he wanted the fireman to go up in his bedroom and get my brother's graduation suit. This would be in '29. And fireman wouldn't go up. So he went up the ladder, went in and got the suit while I was up right through a mattress out. He was spunky.
Yeah.
He was spunky as could be.
The coat come out orange.
oh really?
They had white coats then. Black pants and white coats.
Right.
The coat come out orange.
What caused it to come?
The smoke.
Oh,
Yeah, smoke had already gotten to it.
was the house a total?
He gutted it.
They got
Yeah,
it.
got it.
Where did you live after that?
Went the second house up from Frank's Cafe in Cuyahoga Falls, just not too far down the road.
Right, we call it the junction, where Hudson Drive comes in on Front Street.
Yes.
And there was a few buildings in there. Frankie's Cafe was one little place, and then there was a second house from them.
When we lived there, before the house caught on fire, Route 5 it was called then, I guess, from the light there at Silver Lake.
Mm-hmm.
From there on to Stowe, it was all dirt road. And there was a car come up one night. Dad was we were sitting in the front parlor. Dad was getting ready to go to lodge. We heard a big thump on the side of the house. We went out here. Some guy came through the intersection, and there's a big enough bump from the pavement to the dirt road. He lost his wheel, and it came up and hit the side of the house.
Oh.
That would be how many houses up
Was that
from the light where we live?
Front Street?
On Silver Lake,
Oh, Silver Lake?
4 or 5 houses.
Oh, at that time it was only one.
There was only one house, but I think it'd be
Yeah,
about 5 houses up from the
A big
intersection.
space between.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you remember? What did your father? Your father drove, had horses.
That was my
My grandfather.
grandfather.
Your grandfather. What did your father do?
He was a stationary engineer, which is, he wanted to be an engineer on the railroad. But my mother said if he went on the railroad, she wouldn't marry him.
Ah.
Because she worked at the what they call the puffer belly now. That's where she worked.
What did she do?
She's a waitress, and she served the railroad people or any passengers, whatever. Well, what she made, $4?
I think she made $4 a week.
It,
She had to quit school because her parents took sick, and she had to go to work.
So your mom and dad both worked.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my dad had a 4th grade education.
And he used to work at the waterworks. It's on
Plum
Cherry
Creek.
Street and Plum Creek or whatever.
Yeah.
He used to operate the pump, a steam pump, to pump the water
Right.
in for Kent.
Oh.
And the preacher one day asked my mother why Dad didn't come to school or come to church on Sunday. She said, well, if my husband didn't come to work, you people wouldn't be able to run your organ, because they run the organ by water.
Oh.
She said he pumps the water to run the organ.
That's good. Now, as time goes on, you get pretty close to the Depression, 1929. It must have, in some way, it affected everybody. What do you remember about how it affected your family?
Well, we always had something to eat. It wasn't so much sometimes, but Dad was always working someplace or another. We never accepted any welfare or anything like that. That sometimes we wore the clothes till they was completely worn out, and we'd have potatoes and a vegetable. That would be our meal for supper. And we had 3 other brothers and sisters.
So, oh, you had 3 other brothers and a sister, so there's 6 in the family.
5.
There's 5.
2 brothers and a sister.
2, oh, you're the 2 brothers and a sister.
We're the 2 youngest.
2 youngest, a sister.
She was the oldest.
Okay.
And Eddie, who has,
And then there were 2, so there's 5 in the family.
yeah.
Right.
So that was a lot of food on the table.
was.
Oh, yeah.
When we in 1931, when we moved to Graham Road, we had a cow, we had chickens, and Dad had raised 2 pigs. And they'd kill one of them in like October or whenever, and he split it with our uncle in Cleveland. And then the next one would be around New Year's Day, and he'd split that one with the uncle in Cleveland also.
About 1936, he came up with a pony. And we used him to cultivate the garden, pull the wagons, ride him, and all that good stuff.
So you were it sounds like you were a fairly self-sufficient
Yeah.
family.
That's the way we were taught. We were taught to take care of ourselves. And
So was it a fairly pleasant home life,
oh yeah,
it seems?
yeah.
very.
All the children got along?
Yeah, we were poor, but nobody ever told us that. We didn't have that boob tube in the living room to point a finger that you're poor, go get welfare, you're poor, do this.
When we was born, my sister was 16 years old, so she had a built-in babysitter.
Ah.
Ed was 14 and Ray was 11. So we were, there was 11 years difference between the youngest brother at the time until us, till we arrived. So
The thing I've always repeated is we were poor, but we didn't know it because the people next door were worse off than we were.
yeah,
But your dad was an upstanding man, it sounds like, that always found something to do.
Yeah, he had something to do. He
never a day without work.
never made much money. What do you make at Firestone? 65 cents an hour when he started?
I think that's probably what it was. Because I started at Firestone in 1943 at 78 cents an hour. He started in 1933. 33.
What did you do at Firestone?
I built 50 caliber machine gun, helped build 50 caliber machine gun clips for the Army. And then I went to synthetic plant where they made synthetic rubber, and I worked there as an electrician. Then I drafted into the service, and that was the end of my working days for a while.
Did you both go into the service
Right.
at about the same time?
So he went ahead of me. I had smashed my thumb just before I went through graduation. I couldn't find a job, so I went to work on a farm.
This is out of high school we're
Yeah,
talking about, right?
Right out of high school. And I had a 2-month deferment because the farmer didn't want me to leave. So I went in a couple months after he did.
I went in October of '43, and it was quite an experience.
Can you relate some of it? We have, some gentlemen come through and served in World War II and saw some things that they'd rather forget. And we find that a lot of World War II vets are very shy about, or not shy, don't really want to relive any of those moments and don't say anything or even want to talk about it. And their wives say the same thing,
Yeah.
that they have never said anything about their World War II. So feel free to tell stories or not. It's up to you. I think it's important that you do, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I think the young people today need to hear what we have come to call the greatest generation, what you guys did for us. So, really like to hear your experiences.
He's got his in book, for him.
I-
Mine's off the top of my head. I didn't keep much of a history of what I did. But he went to Europe, and I went to South Pacific in the Philippines.
When did you go in?
I went into service in 1943, and in 45 I went to Philippines.
Where'd you do your basic training?
In Camp Olders, Texas. Then I went up to Camp Joseph T. Robbins in Arkansas and served as cadre there for 1 year. And from there I went overseas in the 43rd Infantry Division.
So you were an infantryman.
Yep,
Did you see any action?
very little.
Very little.
Blood patrols. In my tour of duty I saw one dead job. It was only proof that we always had a squad of guerrillas with us, and they took no prisoners. That was the proof. I saw the proof. They would not take a prisoner. Did a lot of bridge guard. And of course when the war ended, we were trained to invade Japan. And they told us to expect 25% casualties. 40 years later, I read information that said we'd have been decimated had we gone in. So I thank Harry Truman for saving my life. I thank him for dropping that bomb twice and saving my life and several others. And of course, we're not into occupation in Japan.
Were you part of the occupation?
Oh yeah.
How long were you there for?
Well, I was there from August until August or September till April. 5 months.
How did your folks feel about you going into the service?
Oh, I suppose they were apprehensive like everybody else, you know. They didn't want to see their sons go to the service, but that was the thing to do, and you had a reason to go. I think everybody had a reason to go in at that time. And I know they worried about us.
What about you?
Well,
He's got a little better story to tell.
I went in October '43, was drafted of course. Tried to join the Navy, but they was full and wouldn't let you in, so I said, well, they're going to have to draft me then. I was working at Firestone then at the time, and I made $1.33 an hour. That's good big money. But I went to Camp Benning, Florida, for my
Fort Blanding. Camp
Blanding, for my original training, and they trained us as a mechanic also. We did most of our schooling and training for mechanics during the day. We did most of our training for field work at night. So we had a pretty full schedule. When I graduated out of that school, they sent me to Fort Benning, Georgia, which was the infantry school, because I was in the infantryman line company. Well, not a line company, I was supposed to be in a service company. We went to school for 4 months in Fort Benning, Georgia, and we kind of lucky because we didn't go to school till 9, finished at 6, no KP, no guard duty, and we could dress very casual. I had a pair of coveralls I wore and a pair of moccasins, and that was it. When we left Fort Benning, we was headed for overseas, so they gave us a delay en route at home. And when I come in at Cleveland, is that when you took the duffel bag off of my shoulder?
Don't remember.
I come in, was going to go overseas, and I think he found out some way, so he came home on furlough.
When I found out he was going overseas, I went in and asked for a furlough and got it.
Ah.
But when I come up the steps out of the train station, he took the bag off my shoulder. But I went from home 11 days. Then I went to Fort Meade, Maryland, and they gave us, just a couple days training, I think, more or less to take up time on the processing. And then they sent us to Camp Shanks, New York, to go overseas. And we had to get our hair cut. I noticed if you bought, the haircut was a quarter. If you bought something extra, which would be another 25 cents or 50 cents, they didn't cut your hair quite as short. So that's what I did. I bought something extra so they didn't cut my hair quite so short. But they getting the orientation, getting ready to get loaded on the boat and everything. They said, "Is anybody in here not 19 years old?" And I says, "Yes, me." "Well, how old are you?" I said, 18. "When's your birthday?" And I said, "July 21st. And pulled out a paper, and he says, "You'll be 19 when you get on the boat." So I traveled on the USS, it was a Aquitania, British ship. And it was a fast ship and large ship. We didn't have any escorts. We made a straight line to Scotland. And from Scotland we transferred into train, rode the full length of Scotland and England into southern England, and that's where we was put in what they call a replacement company. We used to replace the boys that got hurt in the war and whatever. And we did a lot of training. That was in first week in August. And we did a lot of training, and one time we went out and pulled parachutes out of trees and stuff because the paratroopers had trained and they had to pick up the parachutes, so that was one of our jobs. And I didn't really have a formal line infantryman education. I had mostly motor mechanics and everything. The only weapon I'd ever seen was a 50 caliber machine gun, other than the rifle we had. And when we landed in the camp, the major come out there, and the first thing they did, they took all the radio men and the linemen infantrymen. All was left was cooks and mechanics. So I was in the group of the cooks and the mechanics. And the major come out there and said something about, "You boys can be proud. You tell your grandchildren that you shouldered a rifle in the war."
Where did you see action?
Well, we left England in October
44?
1944. D-Day was June 6th, so we missed D-Day. But we went across the channel in a little, I call it a little boat, whatever.
LCT?
But no, it was I call it a fishing boat. It was in hammocks in the bottom of the boat. And they'd swing back and forth, and as long as everybody was swinging the same way, it was okay, but every once in a while you'd get out of whack and you'd bump. But when we landed at Omaha Beach, that's Omaha Beach, and we went down the rope ladders into the landing craft. And it was pretty rough, and the boats were bumping back and forth and everything. And I remember once we got into the boat, they sent our records and everything in a wooden box on a rope down put into the boat. It got between the two boats and crushed it, and our records were gone. I'm sure they had duplicates because we got paid 7 months later. We never got paid for 7 months. But we landed, when they landed on the craft onto the beach, there was high tide. There's supposed to be a metal place for the land, but it had been about 2 feet underwater. And somebody said, "Oh, that's not too bad." Well, when the boy dropped the anchors, they dropped 2 anchors so they can pull themselves back off of the beach. When the boy dropped the 2 anchors, he dropped them too quick. He got out into the line, well, that was it. So they just dropped the nose of the ship, the landing ship, and off you go. And I remember going off into that deep water, and I'm only 5'6". The water was up to my chin, and I got my rifle over my head, and I recalled later, it was just like the movies. But we landed at, it was early in the day, and we went up the hill and up into the orchards. They call them the orchards. There's another name, hedgerows too. And we slept in pup tents. And we was only there 3 days, and we finally got a meal. We went 3 days without eating. We didn't have any rations with us or anything.
There wasn't any action at this point, though.
Oh, no.
The Germans had been pushed back
Yes.
from the landing, so that you were then sent as reinforcements?
Well, we were going in as replacements.
Replacements.
And at that time, the fighting was just south of Metz, France. And Metz is in the southern part of the Alsace-Lorraine, which heads up into Germany. So we camped there, like I say, 3 days, and then we would march. The first town we came to was St. Lo, and there wasn't only one house standing in the whole city. Everything else was just a pile of rubble. And then the next day we marched. I can't remember the name of the town, so we weren't allowed to keep track of them even. But I have books that I could follow and everything. Well, after several days, we finally end up on the 40 and 8s.
On the what?
The 40 and 8s.
What is the 40 and
railroad
8s?
car with 48 soldiers and 8 horses.
Uh-huh.
That's for the French. That was World War I vintage. But they had, I don't know how many of us was on each car, but you couldn't lay down to sleep. If you did lay down, it would be in shifts. Everybody be standing up and leave room for a couple guys to lay down to sleep, whatever. And they put us on a siding, and then they would take that same train and pull another train past us, put him on the siding. And they'd come back and get us to kind of hopscotch. They were taking 2 trains with 1 engine to get us where it was going to go. But we ended up in just south of Metz, France, at Nancy. And the action actually started around, I think around the 14th of November. I'm pretty close to that anyways. So I joined the 95th Infantry Division as a replacement on November 17th. But I didn't actually get assigned to my company and squad until the 21st of November, and that's the day the city of Metz fell. So from the time we got off of the train until the city of Metz fell, we did a lot of escorting of tanks to keep the snipers and any German soldiers away from coming up and sabotaging them or whatever.
What did you do as an escort? You preceded the tanks to
stood
clear?
We stood right beside them and guarded them at night and the daytime, whatever.
Was that something that you felt safe doing? Or, I mean, I've heard stories about the guys didn't want to be where the tanks were because the tanks drew a lot of fire.
Right. The first thing I seen when they dropped us off, they picked us up with trucks and dropped us off at the edge of town, was the dead German soldiers were still laying in the street. That was quite impressive. And then the first night we stayed in an old German barracks with a great big hole in the roof, And it was raining that night too. But like I say, the city of Metz fell on the 21st of November, and that's when I actually joined my company, and I was in number 1 squad, number 1 platoon, C Company, 1st Battalion, 377th Infantry Regiment, 95th Infantry Division. And we supported Patton's tanks mostly. I mean, they when we left Metz and headed up through Alsace-Lorraine towards Germany, we had we'd take a town a day possibly. It was all on foot, nothing else. And the tanks were behind us. They was our support. And the 29th of November is the first real combat. I mean, we was in combat, but that was the first time we met opposition to a degree that we knew we was in the war. But previous to that, we'd taken a lot of prisoners and everything, but we never actually had combat, or fire our rifles or anything like that.
When you took prisoners, what would you do?
Just send them back. But we didn't interrogate them or go through their pockets or anything. We couldn't. The minute we took prisoners, they was sent to the rear. They take one guy and he'd take 40, 50 prisoners back, whatever. But the first town we went into was Giesingen. And that was, they come up with a marching in fire. That was you started out in a line going into town, and the lieutenant gives you the orders to fire. You didn't just fire your gun whenever you felt like it. The lieutenant gives you orders to fire your rifle. And you line up and had bandoliers. I had one on each side of me. That's what was in my belt. And we just march and fire. It was really foggy, you couldn't see nothing. And before we got started, there was we thought it was a machine gun behind us.
A German machine gun.
German machine gun. They sent 3 boys back to take care of that. Well, the noise stopped, so that was the last I heard of it. But through my reunion with my army later on, I found out that was E Company, and they were firing their rifles right into us.
They didn't know you were there.
No, they didn't know we were there.
And they heard you, and they thought you were...
Well, the 3 boys that went back notified them.
I see.
I talked with one of the boys that was in there. That was the only way I knew it. I met him several times. Because I said something about it, he says, well, the reason that you thought that was a machine gun, he said, that was us firing into you.
This is what they call friendly fire.
Yeah, right. So we got going into this little town. The guy on the left of me, his name was Hogue. I heard him holler. I said, what happened? Needed nothing. The guy to the right of me, he was from Arkansas. He had a brand new field jacket, a big green field jacket, and where it folded, the rifle bullet went through it. He was mad because he had a hole in his jacket. But when we got into town, I found out Hogue had lost his thumb. A bullet from somewhere came and took off his thumb on his left hand. And we got in there, the people were in the homes. And when they come out, they would they'd say, Nick sold out, and that's no soldiers, no soldiers. And we asked them where they were, and they pointed that way. It'd be kind of north and east, I guess you call it. But we was there just a very short time, and we took another little town between Giesingen and Santa Barbara. and we didn't have any opposition there. And we wanted to stay there for the night, but they didn't want us to stay there for the night. They wanted to take the next town, which is Santa Barbara. So we head for Santa Barbara, and we run into Marching and Fire again. I was with the radio man. I was right next to the radio man. And I could hear him to say to lift the artillery behind us. They had to lift them 50 yards or whatever it was, because they'd drop in the shells.
Giving them the range.
And you could see then it changed. It'd be another 50 yards down or whatever. We come up to a big tank trap, which is just a great big deep ditch. I met Frank said that he wasn't going to go through that deep ditch with his radio and everything. He's going to wait. Well, they told us to keep going, of course. And we went through the deep ditch. He got up on the other side, and when I got up the other side, I didn't take too many steps. The first thing I seen was a German soldier with a Panzerfaust.
A what?
A Panzerfaust. That's an anti-tank weapon. It looked like a ball bat with a basketball on the end of it. I mean, that's the way I can describe it. And they fire those. They had to be fairly close range because they don't have much range to it, but they fire those at a tank to put the tank out of commission. I seen him, and he just disappeared, and that was it. But we went into Santa Barbara then, and we got into town. We didn't meet any opposition until we got about halfway into town, and they had an offset in the street. It came in and then it kind of went a little off to the right. The minute we stepped around that offset, we seen a truck with a machine gun in the back, and he cut loose and strafed us, of course, and then it quit. There was no more. So we were standing there trying to figure out what to do, and a tank come up around the truck, and he started strafing us. So we knew we'd have to get off the street.
It's a German tank.
German tank. We knew we'd have to get off the street, so there's a house with the door open. And I told the boys I was with, I said, we better get in that house. And I headed for the house myself, and I was probably maybe from here to that door from it. The two boys come in running in behind me and come into that door, and the machine gun let loose. He got both of them boys. But right to the right of that was another door, which we went in. And there was five of us got into that space. It was about an 8-foot space between two houses. And everything over there is stone. All the houses were stone. And the five of us was in there, and we can't figure out what we're going to do because we didn't know what was actually happening outside after we once got in there. And we had no radio communication or anything else. But I had the only one that had a hand grenade. And Jerry says, give me that hand grenade. And I gave it to him. He went out the back door, or the back door there in the house next to us where the machine gun was. He threw it through the back door window. And that was the only thing that we could do. I mean, you don't go up against a machine gun with a rifle. But we didn't know what we were going to do, so there was a ladder going up the side of that house, and then in between, there's a roof over it also. And went into the attic of that house. And we got in the attic of that house and figured it'd be safe, and maybe they couldn't find us or anything like that. But we stayed there all night. And during the night, somebody opened the door up where we came in. You could hear them, they hollered, wanted to know if anybody was up there. But we couldn't tell whether it was one of our boys or a German, because some of them Germans spoke perfect English. And so we just stayed up there, and the Germans underneath us, you could hear them playing guitar, noisy as the devil, singing. and you hear them run up and down the street with their hobnail shoes, and a tank would run up and down the street, back and forth and whatever. And then towards the morning, things kind of quieted up a little bit. At night, they could do pretty much what they wanted to. They get away with it, I guess. But in the morning, then we didn't know exactly what time it was. But we hadn't had anything to eat since the day before. So we'd all go into our pockets trying to find a little something to eat or anything. And I was sitting shoulder to shoulder with Jerry, and a shell come in and hit the roof. And he got 5 pieces of shrapnel in his back. And nobody else got any shrapnel. So we're still don't know what the situation is. And they took and he started complaining about his back. He said, well, we better get him down at the ground floor while we're still able to. So between the other 4 of us, we got him down to the ground floor and stretched him out and everything. We were there for a while, and pretty quick he said he's hurting pretty bad. He's going to have a medic or something. So Sergeant Jake, he was like an assistant platoon leader. And he says, I'm going to open this door and look out, see what's going on. You cover me with your rifle. So I'm standing back and covering him with the rifle. He opens the door, and the shell lands outside the door. He got 2 pieces of shrapnel in his stomach. And the boy behind me, off to one side, his name was Ingram, he got 2 pieces in the back of his leg. And Sergeant Frank, he was a technician, Frank, the technician sergeant. And he was useless. For some reason, he was just useless. So I'm the only one left that's mobile and whatever. And I said, well, I'll go see if I can find some help. I went out, was real careful. I unloaded everything. I took everything off of me so I could run fast. I figured I would go back where we came from, the main thing. And I'm running down the sidewalk, got about halfway between there and the outside of town. Somebody hollered my name. I zipped in there, and that was a company CP. It was a command post. Mm-hmm. And they had one boy laying in there on the stretcher then. He looked like he was dead to me, but he wasn't. And they wanted to know what was going on. I told them. So they gave me a litter and another boy, and we went down and carried them 3 boys up and put them in. We put the 2 of them in the CP. Because old Sergeant Jake said, take the other boys first. He was the worst hurt, really. So we went back to get him, and in the meantime, they were still throwing a lot of mortars in on us. And we kind of have to stop and start, whatever. He didn't want to be running with mortars running around him. So we picked Jake up and took him up. The medic Jeep had come in. He had put 2 on top and 2 on the hood. And we put Jake right up on top of the Jeep and went inside to get the other boys, and the shells really started popping in. So I took one of the other boys and went out. I was going to get Jake inside. We went out. He said, get back in there, leave me alone. But we took him in anyways. Well, after the shelling settled down, we took Jake and Jerry and put them on top of the medic's Jeep, and the other 2 boys we put on the hood. And one boy I didn't never see before, so I didn't know his name. But the Jeep was just about ready to take off, and here come a boy running up the street, had a broken arm. The shell come in and broke his arm. He had to hold his arm like this. I got a hold of him and got him in the front seat of the Jeep, and he took off. And that was from there then, it was kind of about day by day. The next day we had I found this out later on. talking with one of he was a platoon leader of 3rd Platoon. I talked to him at my reunion. I talked with him, and we got our stories together, and either him and I ended up in the same house.
Mm.
And he's the one that fired the bazooka that got the tank. We got 3 tanks altogether out of that town. That was that's where I was awarded the Silver Star.
Awarded a Silver Star. That's fantastic. Was it given to you personally, or did they mail it to you? How do you get the Silver Star? What did you specifically get the Silver Star for? That battle?
That one day.
That one day.
That one day. And they just handed it to me one day. And I just handed it back to the mail clerk, said mail it home for me.
Is that for above and beyond the call of duty, the
Yep.
Silver Star?
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
I was 19 years old.
You just did what you had to do.
Yep.
And that's what everyone did. They did what they had to do.
Basically.
Whatever happened, you took care of it at the time. You had no specific instructions really what to do or how to do it. And I think it's a GI ingenuity at one war.
So you didn't have a lieutenant barking orders at you? You just...
We didn't have a lieutenant for 3 weeks. We went 3 weeks without a lieutenant.
What was that like?
Well, like I say, you just, whatever comes natural.
So your small group of guys figured out what needed to get done, and you did it.
Oh yeah, right. We regrouped. Of course, after a couple of days, we got regrouped, and we went further into town, and we had house-to-house combat. We'd blow a hole in the wall and get through that hole, and then blow a hole in another wall, and get through that hole. That's the way you clean the street out. You know, house by house and street by street. That was on the 2nd of December when all that took place there. The Christmas, we had 12 of us had chickens for Christmas dinner. They were running loose, and the boys took care of them.
I knew you were going to say that.
Then for New Year's, they shot a heifer, and we was having steak for New Year's. And I remember the boys had them all cooked up and everything, and I had mine on my plate, and they ordered us to move right now. It's dark, of course.
You never got that steak.
Oh, I took it with me.
Oh, you took it with you.
And we went further into town, and they put us on the street, or been on the south side of the street, and they was shelling in pretty heavy on us. And I figured, well, the safest place would be to put my back up against the sandstone basement wall. You live in the basement all the time. So I'm sitting there, and the shells were coming, like I say, were coming in pretty heavy and shaking around and everything. And one hit so close that it shook the sand mortar between they had in there into my steak. I just took my fork and rubbed it off and ate it anyway.
Yeah.
But we went from that house to the house across the street, which had been on a corner. And they come out there, and we got a couple new boys at that time, and they always put the new boys on guard duty. And we was in the basement, and one boy come down and says, "Hey, they're setting up a machine gun out here. What am I supposed to do?" And one guy said, "Well, shoot him." Well, by the time we got up and got out, the two German guys that setting it up took off.
Mm.
They left the gun there and everything. And then it gets, you can't do anything till dark, really, as far as moving. Well, that night they blew a hole in the wall on the other house on the corner.
Who did? The Germans?
No, one of our well, they got a name for them, engineers.
I see.
When the engineers come up, he blew a hole through the first wall. So we get in that corner house, and the boys get pretty antsy at times. They want to do something, get moving, whatever. They didn't want things to be too quiet at times. And that night, I remember we was all sleeping in the bed. They had a boy on guard. His name was Frenchie, and he kicked me down, waking us up. Said, "There's noise out there." You know, Sergeant Johnson says, "Just go back up there and see what happens." And the second time he came down, Sergeant Johnson said, "Well, next time you hear a noise, shoot it." He had a Browning automatic rifle, which is 20 rounds. It burnt them off at 20 rounds just like that. We're pretty much back to sleep maybe. He got loose. And of course the sergeant went up to see, you can't see nothing in the dark or anything. That was it. Well, the next morning he gets moving around and he goes up, see how Frenchie's making out. And he come back downstairs just laughing like a devil. He was second squad, we were first squad. He said he'd go have a new patch made for second squad. I said, "What would happen?" "Well, Frenchie shot last night. He got a dog and there's a cemetery out there." He said he shot him. He said he's going to have a new patch made, tombstone the dead dog.
They got a restroom here close by.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's down the hall there, last door on the right.
Lunch water's coming through.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of
Down here on the right.
Yeah, go make a left and then last door on the right.
we had a lot of time in Sierra Leone, Germany. Santa Barbara's were.
So what was your objective? Was to take all these little towns marching towards, what was the final objective to get to?
Berlin.
Was to get to Berlin.
Right. From Sierra Leone, then I was in Sierra Leone, and everybody heard about it. You're supposed to take a shower every day or something like that. I had my last shower in England, which was in October, and I had my first shower in France on December 17th.
October, November, December, so it was over 2 months.
Yeah. That was the first shower I had. It was December 17th.
How did that feel?
Well, I really don't remember, to tell you
Yeah.
the truth, but I remember it had to be quick. It was all set up and everything. It had to be quick anyways. You couldn't waste water and all that.
Right.
And then they came through and they had Battle of the Bulge come up.
I was going to ask about that.
And we was in reserve for 2 days when this happened, and we had to go back into Sierra Leone right away and relieve those guys so they could go to the Battle of the Bulge. Well, they were only a few days, and they sent them back. You know, they was in and they sent them back, and then we had to go to the Battle of the Bulge. Well, we got into Bastogne was the biggest one, and the next town towards the east, or west I should say, west and north, would have been Foy. That's where we was at in town, Foy. The next town was, well, starts with N. Anyway, that's where the Germans were when we went in. So we didn't see any action in the Battle of the Bulge, but we had to control the civilians. And
What does control the civilians mean?
well, they're all rushing back to get into their homes. That most of them pretty well destroyed anyways. But you have to keep them under control because they fight, steal, or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I could tell you a few stories there, but I won't take too much time. But when we slept in the snow because there was no place to sleep. There was a barn there half gone, and most of the boys was sleeping up in the hay and like that, but when I got around, I had to sleep outside on the snow. And the next day, it was night when we moved in. The next day, then the boys, it was 10 below zero.
Mm.
It was 10 below zero. The next day, the boys found an old iron kettle in the stand,
Mm-hmm.
like the old farmers used to have.
Mm-hmm.
So they found water, filled that thing up with water, and they're heating it so that the guys could maybe get a little water to wash their face or shave or whatever. Anyways, our canteens were frozen solid.
Wow.
And it was that cold. So they set this thing up and built the fire. Well, once the fire went through the snow and everything, it was an old, old machine gun nest. And then bullets started popping off. So it scared the daylights out of everybody, of course, and you had to back off of it and everything. Wanted to finally quit. They said, well, we'll just move it this time. So they moved it over, built another fire, and the guys that set their canteens around the edge of the kettle to get them thawed out. And everybody told everybody, now take the lid, loosen the lid on your canteen so you don't blow up, whatever. Well, somebody didn't loosen their lid, and we're there, and that thing blew off. We thought we had a cannon underneath.
It's a good story.
That there was, the civilians were quite a help to you at the time too, because they told us there was 40 German soldiers. They didn't know where they were. They knew they were in town, but they didn't know where they were. You know, we didn't find them the first day, but they found them the second day. The second day, they were all in a basement. All of them dead. It must have been consumed all the oxygen. But the third day, they sent us out to retrieve tanks. And we had to go with the tank retrievers, 4 of us. And we had guard for snipers. And snipers give us more trouble than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the big machine, you know, and they take the cables out and hook out the tank and maneuver it up onto the carryall. And this guy sits up on top operating everything. I'm down there by the tires on the tractor. And he said, I want you up here where you can see. So I had to go up there with him so I could see better for looking around for snipers and stuff.
While this is going on, did you get mail from your brother or your other siblings or parents? Would you ever get mail delivery, or did you write letters home?
Oh yeah, I wrote a letter home on the 21st day of November from the city of Metz. I can remember that. We really didn't have too much time to write letters, but occasionally we would find paper and time we could write a letter. But 9 times out of 10 we was on the move, going, and a lot of people used to ask me what I missed most. I said sleep. We got very little chance to sleep, and if you had a free moment, that's probably what she's trying to do, is get a little sleep. They kept you so busy and whatever, and you go for days without any sleep at all.
So were you there when the war ended? Were you over in Germany at that time?
Oh yes, I went from the Battle of the Bulge back to Sarah London. And from Sarah London, they sent us up to Liège, Belgium. But we went up there we got a second shower in a coal mine. That had been in January. And from there we went up to Holland. It was 2 weeks with Montgomery's army.
Oh, I see.
And then from there we come right back to Liège. And they told us to go back to the same house that we was at. And this boy was in the Belgian army, but it was disbanded, so he was home, and his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really something. They like their own kids coming home. But from there, from then, we went into, back into Germany. We was in Aachen and Munich and in Dortmund, all them towns. What I really remember about Dortmund was beer. The boys rolling beer barrels down the middle of the street. That was something.
Yeah, there's a brewery in Dortmund.
Right.
There's a Dortmunder beer.
Yeah. And then from there, they put us on the tanks on the Autobahn and told us it'd be in Berlin in 3 days.
And this was, the war had been over, or was...
No, this was in March. It was in March, just before the war. The war was really
it ended
taming
in
down.
May, didn't it, the war?
May.
May 8th was
May 8th,
May
yeah.
8th. But they put us on
But they call that VE Day?
Yeah.
they put us on we rode the tanks. Several times we rode tanks and everything.
I see.
But they put us on tanks. They had A, B, and C, and we was A, and I happened to be at that time I was the runner for the lieutenant. So the lieutenant and the platoon sergeant and my squad sergeant, and I was the runner. The four of us rode the lead tank on the Autobahn. And we made such good time that we were supposed to be and B in reserve the next day, and then the third day we was both been in C, clear of the back. We made such good time they just made us go. We covered 130 miles in 3 days,
Wow.
and they stopped us before we got into Berlin to let the Russians go in. Then when we came back, we went through a lot of countryside, just sweeping, so to speak, to clean up the remnants of the German army.
Was there still pockets of resistance?
Oh yeah, we took a lot of prisoners. It was nothing to take 60, 80 prisoners at a time.
They readily surrendered.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was no...
Were they, as I've read, very young? The last of the German troops were very young teenage boys?
Well, mostly we ran into a bunch of older ones.
Right.
We didn't run into too many what you call the crack troops.
Right.
I mean, most of them were older people and well respected and everything. The one towards the last, or the one thing I can really remember, I was with the lieutenant, and they told us to be real careful if you seen a Red Cross sign on a building. Well, we went up, and this was a gun emplacement, and they go ahead.
It's unplugged. It's unplugged. I wish someone would answer it out there. Okay.
This is the artillery. There's 4 big artillery guns in there, and they were all pointing straight up. And I picked up a carbine that somebody had stuck down in the ground. It was a German carbine.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked that up, and I was with the lieutenant, and we sent 2 scouts in to where this big flag was and everything. And I remember him giving instructions and everything to go in there and see what was going on and give us a high sign whether to come in or just what, you know. So they was in there, and they went around the corner of the building at last we seen them. And they didn't give us any message or anything. So the lieutenant got a little bit antsy. So the squad sergeant and I was the only 2 handy. So he sent 2 of us up to see what was going on. He said, "Now go up and see what's going on and give us a high sign." Well, we went around the corner of the building. We looked in. There was 60 or 80 prisoners. Had them all lined up. They were putting guns in one pile and helmets in another. And these 2 guys were too busy grabbing pistols. They had their coats full of pistols. So I went back and gave the lieutenant to high
You mean
sign.
like souvenirs?
Yeah.
Pistols, like
Sort of
Mausers and,
souvenirs.
yeah,
P-38s and Lugers.
right.
So I went back and gave the lieutenant the high sign, and they had come in then. And the colonel, Decker, he came in. They got radioed back to him. You never seen him generally when there's any action or anything, but actually there was no action here. He came in and he wanted the commanding officer's pistol. And one thing I do remember too is I never remember taking an SS trooper prisoner.
Uh-huh.
They might have changed their clothes or something, but I never remember taking a SS trooper prisoner. And there was one up in the top of the barn. We were up in the peak of the barn, and he wouldn't give up, and he kept pot shotting at us and everything. So they called back and had a tank come up. Had a tank come up there, and the tank pulled up, and he put that old gun through the barn doors and raised it as high as he could get it, and he fired, and that whole end of the building was gone.
Took the guy with him.
Oh yeah. But like I say, I we never actually took prisoners. But then the VJ day, or yeah, not VJ day, VE day, come along, and we was on occupation for 2 weeks. Because we were combat troops, we weren't occupation troops. We were taught for combat, we weren't taught for occupation. But we did perform 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, they told us that they was going to send us to back to the States for 30-day rehabilitation, and from there it was go to Japan for the invasion of Japan.
But the war ended in Japan pretty quick when they
Well,
dropped the bomb.
I came home.
Right, real quick.
I came home in July, and had 30-day furlough, and I joined my division back in Mississippi. And in the meantime, I got transferred back to being a mechanic. After the war was over, I got transferred back into being a mechanic. And I can remember VJ Day. Everybody had a big celebration.